A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, if you live on the East Coast or in Alaska or somewhere other than the Pacific Northwest, there was the Galaxy Quilt. I'm going to show you how to make this awesome quilt behind me, which is a Vegas strip exclusive. Let's get started. Before we start this project, I want to go over a couple things that make this quilt unique. You can see these stars here. Most of the time when you're making a star pattern like this, the points require a lot of piecing to put that one piece together, which is then multiplied by typically four times to make your star, or however many points the star has. What we've done here though is we've adjusted this a little bit so that if you see this point right here, this block is actually made out of 3 pieces. You got your pink here, a big white piece here, and a little white piece here. So what you actually have is this side of the block is a 1/4 square triangle, and this side's a 1/2 square triangle. And by doing that, it allows you to save some time and kind of simplify the process, save your cutting as well, and end up with the same result. Now, I will say that only works if you're using a solid colored fabric, which obviously we are here. If you had a pattern or a texture to your fabric, you'd be able to see that it wasn't all the same piece there, and it might look a little off kilter, which is why you would do it the traditional way, and that would make all of the points all pieced in the same way. So that being said, let's get into this. Beyond that, it's pretty straightforward. We have our star block, we have a 4-patch, and it's another example of how you can take a simple design and make something really cool with it, and also another example of the great things you can do with a Vegas strip, which is a Sew Yeah exclusive pre-cut. I'm gonna start off with my 4-patch block. There's nothing special about this process. I've got 2 different fabrics that contrast nicely. One's a little bit lighter, one's a little bit darker. And I've got 2 squares of each color, which is just a Vegas strip, 6.5 inches wide, cut to 6.5 inches square. So all I'm gonna do for this is I'm going to arrange them in the order that I want, which if you look at this, something that we've done on this particular one, you'd want to either take it or leave it depending on the look you're going for. You've taken the squares, or the colors in our 4-patch, and we have varied them from the squares, or the star squares around them, so that we're not using the same colors butting up against the stars. We had a little issue here, which we're not going to talk about, but overall, you can see the color is arranged in a way that looks nice. Beyond that, there's not really a trick to it. So that being said, I'm going to take my 6.5 inch squares, I'm going to lay them right sides together, and just sew me up a nice 4-patch. With that sewn, we're now going to sew these 2 pieces together, and this first block will be finished. And just like that, our first block is done. Now we're gonna move on to our star block, and as you're gonna see, it is not much more complicated than that 4-patch. Before we get into the cutting of this, I wanna direct your attention over here to the quilt and lay out kind of where everything is going to be. For this, you're gonna be taking some Vegas strips and sub-cutting them down to make a bunch of different size squares. You're gonna have some 5.5 inch squares, some 5 inch squares, and some 4.5 inch squares. I'll show you where those are all gonna go. Those 5.5 inch squares are going to be used for this little point on the star and the piece right here. Your 4.5 inch squares are going to be used for the other side of the star. And then your 5 inch squares are for the centerpiece right here. Something a little unique about this quilt is that it does require cutting your squares on the bias to make triangles of your different pieces in order to assemble these points. It is a little odd, but as you'll see, it all works out pretty smoothly in the end. I'm going to start just by marking a center line on all of my squares and then subcutting them down into my various size triangles. Then we're just going to follow those lines and cut these all into their respective triangles. Now I've got those cut down, if you refer to the pattern, you'll see that this is our A1s, our B1s, and our B2s. And they're pretty simple to sew together. We're going to take our A1 and our B1, and we're going to put them together just like this. As you're doing this, there will not be a left or a right when you get the finished piece put together. But if you are particular about where all of your seams are, be mindful that you can assemble this in 2 different directions. Even though at the end, you're not gonna necessarily know the seam's right there versus right there, unless you get it real close. Just like that. And then now we'll take our B2 piece and sew that on like that. And there we go. I'll give this a press and then repeat this process to make the other points of my stars, and we'll be able to assemble. I will say here that as you are cutting and sewing these, be really mindful that because you are taking these squares and cutting them on the bias, the fibers of your fabric have all now been cut throughout the entirety of that piece of fabric, and so it's going to shift a lot more. Just be mindful of it. You may need to do a little bit of extra pinning in order to keep things from shifting as you are running them through your machine. And now, in case you haven't guessed it yet, the final step is to take our pieces, arrange them into our star pattern, and assemble. I would like to interrupt your regularly scheduled quilt tutorial for a little message. If you are enjoying this, please like, subscribe, and share. I know you hear it all the time, but it really does help because that tells YouTube you're enjoying this and it will push it out to more people who are searching for a little sewing inspiration. And that way the Sew Yeah family can just continue to grow and we can all be inspired by each other and the wonderful things that you're all making. That being said, now back to the tutorial. And then for our last step, we're just going to sew these rows together. And just like that, our block is done. Now, you've got a 4-patch and you have a star. At this point, you have the option to sew these two together and make a nice little throw pillow, or to continue on with the rest of the project to make the full quilt, which I think would be awesome, say for a kid's room. It's bright, it's fun, has a lot of movement to it, but isn't super loud at the same time. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. You've heard that a million times, but it really does help to push this video out to more people who are looking for a little sewing inspiration, and we really would appreciate that. As always, the pattern is free down in the description below. There's a little link there. If you click on it, it will take you to our website where all of our patterns, our Sew Yeah exclusive patterns, are free, and you'll also find a huge variety of fabrics to make this or any other of your upcoming projects. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much. We will see you next time here at Sew Yeah Quilting.